Christmas has come early for us PC nerds as Sony has released Miles Morales on Steam, and I'm joined by Court Lalonde, who had early access to it. Court, what'd you think?
Well, thanks to our friends over at PlayStation Canada, I got to play one of my favorite Christmas games, dare I say. There's not many out there, to my knowledge. The Division is a Christmas game, I almost want to say, but the
True.
Division is very dark and it's all about death and the apocalypse. Miles Morales is beautiful, colorful, and it has an amazing Christmas theme to it. And it's one of those games that I always look back on because it was one of the very first games that got my daughter into video games. She's turning 6 literally in a couple days now. And when we started playing this game 2 years ago, did it release on the PlayStation 5? It was a release
Yes, it
game.
did. Mm-hmm.
She just wanted to swing around Brooklyn. She didn't know anything else about the game. That's all she wanted to do when the bad guys came up. And now, literally, as I started doing the review for it, I was playing on my PC. She made me download it on the PS5, and she's been playing it for days all over again. But now she's able to do combat sequences. She's knowing that you got to press circle to dodge.
Love it.
All these great things. So, with that being said, it's amazing again on the PC. I was playing it on an NVIDIA GeForce 3070, 120 frames, 4K. But as I was saying to Pez off air here, I had already also played the remaster of Spider-Man on by the same developers, Nexus. Amazing port. This is still a great port. I actually had them side by side. I had them on my screen, 4K 120 with my Dolby Vision, amazing TV, and Miles Morales looked way better on the PC than it does on the PlayStation 5. But Spider-Man Miles Morales is not as good as a port as Spider-Man Remastered. Still the quintessential, the best version of the game, but I was saying to you that I found the ray tracing to be not as good as the other one, and I actually ended up just turning it off because it just didn't really make that big of a difference. I remember, and I know you remember my review, the ray tracing made a huge difference in Spider-Man Remastered, and it looked beautiful. With Spider-Man Miles Morales, it really wasn't a thing I needed. But then again, I'm also a person that doesn't really care for ray tracing. I care for my frames per second.
Mm-hmm.
I could still have it at that in this, but I don't really notice it. It's more about the gameplay, and especially with a Spider-Man game, it is all about the gameplay. My other disappointments, I will say, is there was nothing extra in the game. There's no new suits. There is no new moves. There is no new anything. I was hoping, believe it or not, that they would add in maybe just a couple extra missions, or they would add in some extra suits.
Yeah.
They didn't do that, but the caveat to that, it is a 8-hour experience that is phenomenal, that I would recommend everybody to go out and buy. If you haven't played it on the PS5, or even if you have and you want to jump back into a game that is just fun again, this game is one heck of a ride. And still, quintessential version of the game. It's better than the PS5 version of the game. It's so bright, especially when you're in those the beginning sections of Brooklyn and you're going through and you're doing all the Christmas scenes.
Mm-hmm.
It pops. And also the breath coming off the characters. You see it everywhere, even with the NPCs walking down the street.
Let me ask, any haptic feedback on the PS5 controller?
Yes, the haptic feedback does work,
Awesome.
but as I've said before, sometimes the haptic feedback feels like a gimmick. With Spider-Man, it doesn't as much because you are using the triggers to swing, but I don't get it as much when I'm in combat sequences as I would want. And I've said this about haptic feedback, and I have a funny feeling a lot of it has to do with they don't want to drain the battery life if they add so much haptic feedback into every game.
Yeah.
So they pick and choose what it's going to be. I remember just playing God of War Ragnarok, and I was like, they didn't really use a lot of haptic feedback. It wasn't like when you're playing Astro Playroom, when you first got the PS5 and you're like, oh my God, this is what I can do. But that is just a demo of what haptic feedback can do. It's still very cool to feel the release and the tension when you're doing web slinging and you're swinging around Brooklyn. Even my daughter seems to think it's very cool. So that is there. I would recommend it if you're going to play it. Use a PS5 controller. I was using my my baby blue over here.
Nice.
It's one of my favorites. I call it Blue Jay Blue, just because Jay's fan over here in Toronto.
True.
But I couldn't say enough on how much fun it was to jump back into this world of Miles Morales Spider-Man.
Excellent. And I will say, for all you Steam Deck users, it is Steam Deck verified.
It is, and I know that my co-host on the PlayStation Drive that's how he's been playing it, and he's been having a blast with it. So it does work. There's no crashes. He's having a great time with it.
So, Court, this is, I think, PlayStation's third or fourth entry onto the PC. We've had Uncharted, we had Spider-Man, we had Sackboy, and
Death
now
Stranding.
we had Death Stranding, we had God of War, and now we have Miles Morales. So that was
Yeah.
7 right off the bat.
Yeah.
Thoughts on Sony making a legitimate push to the PC market?
I am of the mind, and I can't believe I'm going to say this because I am definitely a console player, that they should be dating these on PC like Xbox does. And I think that also just will make a better game because the sliders and so on and so forth, they do help. Like that Spider-Man version, maybe they won't want to do it because it's going to hurt their sales on the consoles. Because I know those PC players, like even my brother or someone like yourself, Pez, would you be using it on PC or would you be buying it on the console? What would you buy first?
I would buy PC first.
And I get that because Nexus or Nexus, or how you say it, they've done a phenomenal job with the Spider-Man. I thought the Uncharted port was lacking compared to what the Spider-Man. I think they're doing a better job with the Spider-Man ports.
Yeah.
But I think to compete in the future of what gaming is, I think they need to try and be everywhere. I understand they're saying it's like 6 months down the road or possibly a year. I think it needs to be sooner on PC. Maybe, 3 months. But I think they need to start optimizing their games sooner and planning for the PC version of these games because they really are the better version. I'm still going to be a console gamer. I just find it ease of use. I don't have to, have my sweatbox of a PC heating up my room and so on and so forth. I'm sorry, nerds, but it's true. And then having to change out my graphics card. I'm already looking at getting a new graphics card, and Jesus, they're like $2,000 out in here in Canada.
You don't need one. You don't need one. 3070 is perfect.
But I will say this: for a $50 game on PC, US MSRP,
Yeah.
I can't see why, if you haven't played it, this isn't an instant jump into this today and start swinging around Brooklyn because it is so much fun. This game, and to me, it's the better of the two Spider-Mans. I like it more first because it is the smaller of the two games. One, there's still a ton to do in it. There's a great story. I think with the Peter Parker Spider-Man, one of my biggest things was that whole Mary Jane part and even the DLC. It just felt like that game just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And with this Miles Morales one, you just get a heartwarming story that's consents and it just hits you in every single beat. And to me, that's what makes a lot of these Sony games amazing, these first party games that they do and how they have their story. And this one just hits perfectly. I've said this before and I'll say this again. After once they did Lost Legacy and now they've done Miles Morales, every single one of their first party games deserves an 8-hour experience after. Pick a character, give me an 8-hour experience.
Love it. Love it. Any final thoughts here before we let the people go?
Honestly, just go out and buy this game if you haven't played it. I very rarely do I say jump in and buy a game right away, but this is one of the games because I do love it. And it at this time of the year, we got snow outside. Well, if you're living in like the Western Hemisphere, but it's a Christmas game and it gives you all the feels.
Great. There you go. If you've enjoyed this little review and discussion, please subscribe to 3 Dads on a Console. Hit that like button. Let us know if you're going to buy it down in the comments, and we will see you next time. Done and done.